The summer movies are upon us. First out, Crimson Tide. It is a story of a mutiny aboard a nuclear submarine. It stars Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. The producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, rose to fame in the 1980s with box office hits like Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and Top Gun. While they may have lost some of their luster over the last few years, their latest film, Crimson Tide, is already receiving quite a bit of attention as the characters move from Cold War certainty to post-Cold War questioning. Joining me now, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. Welcome.
Thank you
It's
very
a
much.
pleasure to meet both of you.
Pleasure to be here.
Tell me what you and how this film came into being. I mean, it is not based on a Tom Clancy novel. It is not based on an original work by someone else. Somebody had a good idea and said, let's make a movie. Who was it?
Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of, we're I guess, a product of our culture.
Yeah.
And we are avid readers and avid watchers of television and go to movies a lot. You know, things kind of breathe to you and tell you what's happening in the world. I mean, Top Gun came from a magazine article that we both read. And so this is a great movie.
The story of this
it's an arena.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
It's an arena. Both of us were sent a documentary that was done about a nuclear submarine. And, you know, as we watched it, we said,
This was on the Discovery Channel, is that right?
Yes,
They
that's
did
right.
that whole thing inside of...
Yeah. That's right. And so we watched this documentary and said, what a great place for drama. I mean, it's all there. It's the sweating and the closeness and the fact that you have Zhirinovsky out in the world carrying on in Russia. And we said, you know, there hasn't been a real Cold War threat since, I guess, the 50s and 60s. And since nobody else is doing it, we're going to do it. Yeah. You know, when we made Top Gun, everybody said nobody's going to want to watch a fighter pilot movie. They haven't done those since the 40s. And we always look at things that way. Whatever anybody else is doing, we're doing something else.
And so what do you do next? You say, this is a good idea, you know. Do you then go commission a script?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
There are a number of ways to approach it, but the way Jerry and I have always worked is we look around for the venue, we look around for the notion, the central spark, and we have a tendency to work on it ourselves. You know, what's the fundamental shape going to be? What's the point of view? What's the direction? And it's important for us to be able to embrace the thematic factors, the emotionality factors, and be able to say, we have a real strong point of view about the tale we want to tell. Sometimes we'll take it further than we did in this movie, but in this movie's case, we had the venue and we had the direction, and then you look for a writer.
Yeah.
And, you know, we found a man named
you look for many writers.
And sometimes you look for writer after writer after writer.
Yes, we do.
And sometimes
we rewrite and rewrite and
you hire the writer, and you hire another writer, another writer, another writer.
Which is our case here, is it?
Well, the truth of the matter is, yes and no. Michael Schiffer, the man who gets screenplay credit, deserves the screenplay credit he got. He did yeoman-like work and provided the blueprint for this picture. It's also true that there were a couple or three or four other writers involved who came in and provided flourishes, provided colors, added to the palette,
People
as it
like
were.
Oscar-winning Quentin Tarantino? Or,
Yes, and Oscar-winning Robert Towne, and you know,
Steve Zalian, another
Oscar winner. It's actually kind of interesting the fact that we had 2 Oscar-winning actors and 3 Oscar-winning screenwriters. I mean, you know, one of the secrets that Jerry and I have found to be very valuable is if you want to look smart, hire incredibly smart people. So that's kind of what we do.
That's kind of the key to our success. If you surround yourself with really brilliant people, they make you look
I want to
great.
talk about the partnership later, but let me get to this film. So then you decide we need we got 2 protagonists here. You look at your screenplay that finally is in front of you. And it demands great performance because all the action essentially takes place inside a contained place, a submarine.
Well, it happened early on. Michael Schiffer, who was writing the screenplay and did an enormous amount of work and killed himself, did all the research and wrote a terrific screenplay. He said, you know, when I was writing, we had one of our meetings, he said, when I was writing the script, he said, I always saw Gene Hackman as playing the lead role. Ooh, what an interesting idea. So conceptually, Gene Hackman's always there in the back of our heads as we're going through the layers of casting.
He's Ramsey in your head.
Exactly. And so no matter who we went to, or not who we went to, or who got interested in the script, there was always Gene Hackman. Now, Gene Hackman's an actor who works a lot, yet he doesn't want to work a lot. So you never know if you can get him to go back to work. We knew he just finished a picture, and we weren't sure we can get him to come to the table again. So you got to play a few games.
So what games do you play?
Well, you start with his agent right away. You call his agent up and say, look, we got a screenplay here that we know Gene would be terrific for. We know he's working on a picture right now, and I know Gene that he doesn't want to get up and go do it again. He's got a beautiful young bride, and he's got a place in New Mexico, and he's a painter, so I know he needs time off and likes time off. And we start that way. We talk to the agent, and we said, we have this wonderful screenplay, please read it. And he calls us back. He'd already read it.
Right.
And he said, Gene's great for it. Gene's got to do this movie.
Yeah.
So already we knew that Gene Hackman's agent wanted him to do the picture. You know, we dabbled with Warren Beatty for a while.
Yeah, I know. I only know that because there was a story about you and all the video equipment you have at your house, and you mentioned having Beatty over and said, Beatty was under the consideration here.
No, Warren had read the script very early on when it first came out and said, this is a great role and a terrific movie.
Yeah.
And we met with him, and he said, I have these script concerns. And we bring our writer in, Michael Schiffer, and we sit down. We have these long meetings over about a 3-week period. And he improved the screenplay enormously.
He did.
Oh,
Beatty
absolutely.
did.
Absolutely.
Good
he
instinct
asked
for
all
that.
the smart questions.
Warren served a particular function. He was the equivalent of the Star Court chamber, as if we were in the chamber and he was there cross-examining us. And what he was doing, from a very, very positive position and point of view, was saying, on a daily basis, and this went on for about a month, I want to do this movie, but. And it was the but factor that kept precipitating us to escalate.
Yeah.
Well, then we've got to address these issues. And in all fairness, not that we wouldn't have, but he compelled us to do it very immediately. And frankly, Warren never said no. What was interesting about the whole process was he went to the dance. He just didn't want to go home with us.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not saying no. I'm just not saying totally yes. So
This is one of his flaws, though, don't you think?
Well, no, I think it's one of the ways that he works.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider it a flaw. I mean,
And you look at his... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You look at his body of work, and most of the stuff that Warren has done is really stuff he's conceived and done himself and produced himself. So it wasn't unusual. I mean, look at every actor wants to be in a terrific film and always looking for good screenplays.
So you get Hackman, who finally says, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Now, does Hackman know that Washington is under consideration?
I think Washington was at the dance before Gene.
Oh, really? So,
and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
What happened is, given that the role Denzel played is the younger character, the list was in some ways shorter. It was not a very long list for a guy who have that kind of acting firepower, not movie star power, but because it's a cerebral role to play. And Denzel was always right in there. He was right in there in the pantheon, the all-star equation. And when we've been talking about Gene, and then all of a sudden I said, well, gee whiz. Okay, Gene. Denzel becomes an automatic for the following reason. We started to look at this movie like the equivalent of the Thriller in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle. It was like Ali Frazier. Because when you're going to do 2 hours in an enclosed space, toe-to-toe, boom, boom, boom,
right.
let me tell you,
Mano.
You've got to be the kind of individual who can keep cranking it up.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when you see the picture, when we see the picture now, not to be disingenuous, Jerry and I have more than once looked at each other and say, who else could have played these two roles when you see them in combination?
And Brad Pitt was under consideration for the Washington role.
We talked to him. We talked to him. We talked to Val Kilmer.
Al Pacino.
We talked
Pacino?
Well, Pacino
for the older
role.
Oh, yeah. And was Cruz under consideration at all, or is he too...
He was busy.
He was busy.
He was
so
busy.
you couldn't get him.
Yeah, he was busy.
Would you have thought of him because of Top Gun? Or?
Well, we would have thought of Tom because believe me, he's a really, really terrific actor. And it's not just his star power, and we've worked with him so much. The answer is yes. Al Pacino came into play because when we were searching around and we were looking for that cerebral actor, Al was available. So Jerry and I spent time sitting with him, talking with him about the movie. And he was a fascinating individual in that he was so thoughtful about it. And he sat there and he was so polite. We spent about a week. I lived next door to the Bel Air Hotel, and he'd be over there. It's a piece you read about the machinery and stuff. He'd come over, and he had nothing but fascinating questions to ask about the character. And then he wanted to meet with Quentin, which he did. A number of times. And
He
then
was writing the screenplay at that point?
Quentin
No, he hadn't. He was the next pass was going to be Quentin.
Yeah, but he wanted to hear his point of view.
Tony Scott, the director, is in.
Yes.
He's there.
He's there
Absolutely.
from
Absolutely.
day one.
And he brought Quentin in.
Right.
He said, if I'm going to make this movie, I want Quentin to do the rewrite.
He did True Romance with him.
Yeah.
And we were sufficiently close to getting Al that on a weekend, his agent spoke to us and said, boy, Al's not saying no. As a matter of fact, I think you guys are going to get him. He says, but he just wants a little utzing as far as the script. So Jerry and Robert Towne got on a plane. I was working on Bad Boys at the time. They got on a plane and flew to New York to sit for like 2 days with Al to do anything possible to get him.
Now, is this true in most movies? You got to go through, you as a producer, let's assume you got your director, have got to go through this real sell job
Always.
to bring together the people you think are going to make the movie you want to make.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine if you are one of these individuals, male or female, it's going to be your face, your personality, your emotions up there for 2 hours.
And your
in
career.
front of the world.
And your career.
And if you've made the wrong choice in terms of the people, the material,
Yeah.
forget about it. I mean, it's scary.
All right, here are some of the reservations that some of the critics have pointed out. I mean, it's gotten these good reviews we talked about. But some people say, look, I mean, the worst violence you have is a couple of slaps. That's it, you know? And only one person is killed, and that happens in a little fire, a reaction to a fire. It's a heart attack, essentially. You've got all this contained thing, and Ramsey, it's not evil versus good. It really is generational. It's about attitude. It's about shaping influences. It's about two people really engaged in a battle of will and ideas and experience. Are you worried that this is not going to be exciting? This is not going to be...
Yes. I mean, initially when we first made the movie, we said, oh my God, there's no real villain in this.
Right.
There's action, but there's not a lot of action.
Right.
It's just great acting, great characters. And it's kind of a suspense character thriller.
Yeah.
Until we showed it to an audience.
And they said what?
They said, this is one of the best movies they've seen in a while. It's the highest score we've ever gotten in any of our pictures, and we've had some very big movies.
Right.
So we said, now wait a second, we might have something here. And I think what we found out is when people got up during the movie and had to go to the bathroom or whatever, they were always looking at the screen, they were walking backwards.
Right.
And you hit a certain point in the movie and nobody leaves their seat. So the suspense is heightened to such a level that you don't want to leave and you can't move.
Okay. Let me set this where we are now. We've got Crimson Tide made, and this is the movie that we're going to take a look at, produced by Don and Jerry. Here is the film with Hackman and with Denzel. They're on a nuclear submarine, and just the basic plot is that there is Washington sends down an order to send nuclear missiles from this submarine to attack some renegades in Russia, a character similar to Zhirinovsky, a kind of nationalist who has seized control of some nuclear weapons. And then the senior officer, Ramsey, has made a decision to do it. Then there is a garbled message that comes, and one side says, we wait until we know. The other side says, we got to go because we've got one message, and that's the way that I see the rules. And so you then have and on a nuclear submarine, at that time, you had to have both people sign on before you could send the missiles, because what was the line from Hackman, from Ramsey, about this is the biggest, what's the line about how...
Most lethal killing machine.
Most lethal killing machine.
Ever devised by man.
Right. So you now have a contest of wills between these two people. Roll tape. Here it is.
It requires my assent. I do not give it. And furthermore, you continue upon this course and insist upon this launch without confirming this message first. I will be
Chief of the boat,
backed by the rules of precedence,
Captain, Commanding Officer of the USS Alabama.
Regulations
I order you to place the XO under arrest on the charge of
Navy regulations.
I say again, I order you to place the XO under arrest on the charge of mutiny.
What are you doing? You've seen this 100 times.
What I'm doing is getting engaged by the movie, which is the reason Jerry and I do what we do for a living. We love movies, and I can't help it. It doesn't matter that we were there. It doesn't matter that we were there before it was done. I love watching world-class people do their job.
Did you go to Hollywood to be an actor?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I trained to be an actor, and I then I was a screenwriter, and I wrote a couple of
head of production at Paramount or something like that?
Yeah.
Now, does he want to be in these films at all?
Sure, he'd love to be in these films. I mean, he's dying to be in them.
And you're the guy that says no.
Holding him back.
No.
I said, you can't do that. You're making this movie.
Tell me about the acting. I mean, in a sense, what's fascinating about this? I mean, what's going to be the appeal, I think, is you got two, more than two. There was a guy, the third guy's name, George
DeSunda, who used to be one of the stars of Law and Order.
Right.
Runs here.
And he's a powerful, I mean, a very good actor. Was he in Basic Instinct as well? Was he
Yes.
in that?
Yes,
That's what
he
I
was.
thought. He was in that too.
Absolutely.
So you've got these two powerful actors. What are you seeing there? And I mean, do they just bring that to the table, all of the stuff that makes good acting, good film acting in terms of face, in terms of expression, in terms of ratcheting it up, all that kind of stuff? I mean, does that come...
Well, you know, it's the level. You got Gene Hackman, who's one of the premier actors in the business, let's face it. And then you got Denzel as a young kid on the block, the Turk, who's already won an Academy Award and is brilliant at what he does. And you just watch how they work against each other, where you see where Gene starts to modulate and go really high and gets his energy up. And Denzel is so smart because he plays right under him. He keeps it real calm and real quiet. And then when Gene calms down, then Denzel raises up. And it's like an opera to watch these guys work. It's like singing these arias.
And how many takes for that scene? Were you there?
Yes. I would say it was 5 or 6 takes. It wasn't a lot.
And each one different, or ratcheting up, or
they work up to a level. In other words, we do a couple of rehearsals where they kind of walk through it, and then the first take is at a certain level. The second take starts to really take shape. By the third take, they're there.
And it's really interesting, especially as concerns these two individuals. There was a moment in time during the latter part of the shooting where, sort of off-screen, off-stage, Denzel made an offhand comment about Gene, because they'd come out of, it was really the Lippens on her horse speech at the latter part of the movie.
Great,
He just turned around and he said, "That man can flat act." And Gene Hackman says, "Just like you." Boom. You'd think it was a part of a movie, just the fact that they were making these references. Can you
tell, I mean, I assume you can, when it's happening, whether you got something going, whether you got the right kind of chemistry, whether the character.
Yes.
You know,
it's palpable.
If you don't have it, you can feel it, and you begin to sweat.
Absolutely. And you can also, you can tell if you have a successful picture. You can tell if the picture's working for you, and then the characters have a certain charisma. But, also, Gene and Denzel are so smart. What they do is they kind of gauge by what the director's doing, and they can tell when the director's going to say 6 or 7 takes, or he's going to go 10 or 12. So they save themselves. They watch how a director works. Some directors will do 3 takes, so the third take better be the best. Tony's a 5-6 take guy, so they kind of build to the 5th or 6th take, and then they give it to you.
Days of Thunder made money, made about $20 million, I read, for the two of you. But it didn't do what some people expected it to do. How would you do it differently today? Do you know?
Well, the problem was a problem of perception. It was Jerry and I coming off Top Gun, and Jerry and I and Tom Cruise coming off Top Gun. At that point in time, it was the #1 picture in the world. The picture had made almost $500 million. And there was such an enormity of expectation brought to the party. The picture was expensive because you had these $100,000 cars going around the track at 150 miles an hour, wrecking. The answer is, you have to understand what you're dealing with going into a picture like that. And what happened was the audience, and this is a line that comes from Robert Towne. When we asked Robert Towne to write the picture, he said yes, and he jumped on board. And he said, "I have a slight misgiving." We said, "What's that?" He said, "My wife said to me, why does anybody want to watch a picture where a bunch of men are chasing themselves around in a circle?" Well, I suppose that's the answer to your question. I mean, as brilliant as Tom was, and as much fun as we had making the picture, ultimately an audience for a couple of hours says it's not like watching ESPN.
And in the end, why do you think this picture works for those that it works for?
It's in the storytelling. It's always in the storytelling. If you tell them a great tale with great characters, you got
that's what it is.
And
or somebody once said that great drama is characters that you like in conflict.
You got it.
And that's what you have here. What's the way you two work? I mean, where is the chemistry between the two of you? Who does what?
Well, in the beginning, Don came from a screenwriting background and a performing background, and also was a studio executive. He was the head of Paramount for like 5 or 6 years. He was president of production, so he had the showmanship qualities. He also has the literary background of storytelling, and then he had the management expertise of knowing how a studio thinks. I was always on the outside of the system. I was always the one actually making the pictures. I was on the line, getting them up to speed, getting them made, and then marketing and promoting them and editing them. So we kind of came from 2 different. I have a photographic background. I was a kid. I was a photographer. I still dabble in it. So I had the visual and understanding of how to make movies. Don had the other expertise. So through the years we've been working together, we're interchangeable now. I've learned a lot about what he does, other than the showmanship, and he's learned a lot about about the actual making of the movies. So right now it's like a hockey analogy would be Messier and Adam Graves attacking the net and passing back and forth, and the one who has the best shot takes it. And that's basically what we do now.
Are you, when you came out of the 80s, I mentioned there was a little lull. There was about 5 years where you had no hits. Did you think, I've lost the touch? Whatever we had, we don't have. Or was it simply the machinations of studios in Los Angeles where, you're not at the right place and you can't get it done for whatever reason?
It was without being disingenuous or evasive, it was the latter. It's not a question of arrogance or overweening self-confidence. Jerry and I, because we have such respect for one another and faith in one another, we knew that we knew how to do it. But we needed to get our development slate to a place where we could get pictures that we really wanted to make. And as a function of the transfer from Paramount to Disney and a number of other things, it was...
Well, you left Paramount after...
Yes, after
Days of Thunder.
Yes, and we went to Disney.
Yeah, on your own, or they said, let's just
It was a mutual
this.
parting of the ways. It was like a divorce. Both sides said, let's not stay in this bed much longer, like another day. So we left and went to Disney.
And you're there with Katzenberg.
Yeah, Jeff and Michael, both. I mean, since I used to work for Michael and Jeff used to work for me, et cetera, and we'd had great
Michael
history
used to run
together.
Paramount.
Indeed he did.
Yeah. So you go to Paramount and it doesn't... I mean, you leave Paramount and you go to Disney. What's the problem there?
It's no problem. It's just the fact of getting the right writers on the right projects and getting them up to speed quick enough. And we just didn't get up to speed quick enough. No movie stepped out and said, hey, I got to be made.
Now, could you guys... I don't understand this, what I read somewhere. You could have had disclosure, yes?
Listen, it was available to us. There's no doubt about it. You know, it was a different management philosophy at Disney. It was the kind of management philosophy that we had at Paramount, where you create your hits. You know, in other words, you don't go out and spend a ton of money buying movies. You develop them like we did it when we were at Paramount. So,
to use a sports analogy, it's like going into a system, and we play a particular kind of offense, and at that point in time, and Jeff was totally straightforward and honest about it, and is to this day. Jeff was playing a defensive game. We were playing an offensive game, and there wasn't necessarily a meeting of the minds. And all of a sudden, where the meeting of the minds occurred was Crimson Tide. Jeff Katzenberg committed to Crimson Tide before he left. He's the guy who...
And it comes out of Hollywood Pictures, so it's...
Darn right.
Right.
Yes.
So, you know, it's kind of like, how do you build your team? Through your farm system, or do you buy the real expensive players? They were building the team through the farm system. And it took us time to get our farm system where we had some great players in the farm system. And that's what happened when we got Bad Boys and Dangerous Minds and Crimson Tide came out of the farm system.
Bad Boys going to be okay?
Oh, yeah. It's the biggest opening of the year so far. It's
13 million or something.
It was 15 and a half, and it's
Man
already
trying to shortchange it.
it's already at 55.
All right, now tell me about Bad Boys. I haven't seen it.
Bad Boys, here's the simple analogy. Bad Boys is the reason we go to movies. Crimson Tide is the reason we make movies. Bad Boys is an e-ticket, popcorn, entertainment ride. What's wonderful about it is the...
This is a couple of...
Oh, the simple tale is it's two guys who are cops, and they're narcotics cops, and they're totally different in their lifestyles. One's happily married, has 4 kids, a wonderroll wife, etc. And
sounds like a formula to me.
And, well, it is certainly observable on that level, yes.
Roll tape. Here's Bad Boys, and we'll have a few more minutes of conversation before we go. Here it is. All right, that's Bad Boys. It's made how much? 13?
It opened at 15 and a half. It's already at 55
and Crimson
million.
Tide did what first weekend?
It
opened
hasn't yet.
Oh, it hasn't opened yet. Around. Okay. So it opens this weekend. We're
That's
ahead. It opens on Friday. Harvey Weinstein at Merrimack said to me that you know by Friday night at 12 o'clock whether you've got a hit.
You're right.
Is that right?
Well, you know what level your picture's
What are you
opened
looking at? Like, what does he
Well,
know? Or?
No, Harvey's a very smart man. The truth of the matter is you don't really know if you've got a blockbuster until the 3rd weekend.
Okay.
That's when you really know.
But you know if your picture opens.
Because curiosity is, by that time...
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know whether the word of mouth's going to kill it.
What is this movie that Kevin Costner's in? Is it called...
Waterworld.
Waterworld. How much is it up to? What's the speculation?
We'd leave that to you and the media.
We don't want to
don't
talk
know.
about this?
Well, no,
talk
we
about
have no idea what it costs.
See, we were in the same dance with Days of Thunder, where people were speculating what the picture cost, and they were all wrong. So, you know, it's up to the people at MCA to tell you what the picture
If
really
it's
costs.
175, it's 175 million. That's a lot of money to recoup, isn't it?
It's a lot of money, but when you walk into a picture like that, it has innate problems.
Here's what I'm asking. Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop 1, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Beverly Hills Cop 2 didn't work. Where is Eddie Murphy's career now? I mean, we all should be Eddie Murphy. He's got a ton of money and he's got a lot of talent. But what does a couple of bad movies do for you? What does he have to do?
It does create a perception in the audience that for some reason you're making choices that they no longer embrace.
Right.
But you know something, when you're, and this is not to kiss anybody's butt, when you're as talented as Eddie Murphy is,
Yeah.
all he has to do is make one right choice again.
Simpson wants you to work for him, Murphy.
Yeah.
All right. And what about Costner? I mean, Costner's... Does he
Listen,
have something riding on this movie doing
well? Sure. Every actor, when they open a picture, has a lot riding.
Yeah.
Because your fee is based on what the opening weekend is. So you have to draw, you know, a large audience to justify the fee that we pay you. So he's got a lot riding.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, Tom Cruise or Arnold Schwarzenegger or anybody.
Yeah, and you guys have something riding on Crimson Tide. I mean, you're
Yes, sir.
on the table.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Here's what's interesting about it. I thought what Hackman and Denzel Washington said, they both said it's like a play in part. Now, I know in ways that you want to cringe at that because you got Tony Scott doing all this fancy stuff, you know, and the lights and the motion and dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. But at the same time, it is because of the drama of the inter-reaction between the two characters.
We love that. It's like Kraft Playhouse in the ocean.
Yeah. Now, when you got ready to make this, did you watch Kane Mutiny? Did you watch Run Silent, Run Deep? Did you watch Mutiny on the Bounty? Did you watch
Boot?
Yeah.
Das Boot? Yeah,
Sure.
that was a good one. And the other one with Sean Connery, what was that? Hunt for Red October?
Sure.
You watched all of them?
Every one of them.
Yeah.
It's research. You know, I mean, you got to look what other people did to.
And can you
formulate
now
yourself.
say that when the audience is millions of people that watch this program go to buy a ticket for Crimson Tide, can you say to them, I've given you the best I can do? This is it.
I don't think we ever.
Or would you say, well, if I'd had another month or two, I would have really been able to make a hell of a movie?
I
in
always
this
want to
case.
change what we've done, you know, but this is a terrific picture.
You always want to change it. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
it's like
you
an
always-
interview.
you always
it's like an
do
interview.
better,
You walk out and
exactly.
say, why'd I ask that? If I maybe
You got
may
it.
have been bigger payoff had I better
Sure.
asked this. Good luck.
Thank you.
Great to have
Thanks
you.
for having
Thanks.
us.
Great to meet you. Stay with us.